Brent, welcome to Guitar Shop TV.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
And what do we got here?
Well, you know, what we have is about 45 years of complete insanity, starting to play as a kid like everybody else, and like the other 99% of people out there. I'm another one of those guys that want to be a rock star and end up being a businessman. But along the way, just kept picking up cool things. As you made money in business and stuff, you got other stuff you always wanted as a kid. And this is the insanity you end up with. This is actually a condensed version from an 18,000 square foot studio and HD production facility that we had in Franklin. And when I sold that about 4 years ago, it had to go somewhere. So we built another building out here on the farm, and the result is what you see. We're on the storage side here in a nice 100-degree July day in Tennessee. And this is one of my favorite pieces right here, which is Jimi Hendrix's 1967 Plexi.
Wow.
That due to a large party that occurred on my farm and ended up with a rather massive arson fire where I had this nicely protected. Here you go.
Wow.
So we kept this.
That is.
I still have the cabinet.
Wow.
And Billy Cox had seen it and everything else, so I know he got it at Manny's and all that. But there's a pretty extensive collection. I mean, I'm probably down about 25% from what I used to be. But
how many pieces do you have in the collection?
well, there's over 300 amps, and there's a couple hundred guitars.
Wow.
You know? It probably was as high as 500 amps and maybe 600 guitars.
My
which
God.
I think borders on hoarding, doesn't it?
Right. No, that's...
So, but part of that insanity was when I was at the University of Wisconsin. I worked for this band called Sick Man of Europe. Lead singer was named Zeno, and this was a really bad bar band. But eventually, the guitar player went over to Waukesha Bowl and found this great singer whose name was Robin Zander, who was only about a year or two older than me, and Cheap Trick was formed. So I worked with them through college to make money. And I watched how Rick was buying guitars, and I met this whole network of other people outside of 48th Street in Manhattan, which is what I was familiar with as a kid, and just started picking pieces up. And between my collection and Scott's, we have things that Rick gave to us that we bought from him, and it just flowed from there. So it's the usual collector's insanity. People call it a lot of other different things, obsessive compulsive disorder, but I still like to think of myself as a collector. At Manny's. Again, that was the other cabinet where they went with the 67 Plexi head that unfortunately burned up. And then you have these Transonics, which were really cool looking. Yeah. But these are the ones that were loaned to Led Zeppelin on their first tour in the States that they ended up dumping in a parking lot on the beach in California because they sound so god-awful. But a really cool looking amp.
Very cool.
You know, when John Kay lived here, he said that he came into another studio and said, you've got everything, but I bet you don't have what we used, which were those Rickenbacker Transonics. And I said, no, John, actually, here we go. And showed him one. He goes, you're the only other guy I've ever seen that has one of these things.
You know, I haven't seen one of these in 30 years.
Tom Peterson has them. I don't know, actually, you know, he's playing through high watts these days, but I don't know if he has them on stage. I don't know if he's actually using them or not. I didn't really.
And this one you never see, the Thunder Bass.
Yeah, this was the Thunder Bass, flip top that was a very affordable amp in the mid to late 60s. And this just unscrews in here and you flip the top over and it was easy to carry. One of the things I think are cooler, I like Sons, the 100S's and the old acoustic 150s. And there's the older model, which I'll slide over to, which was the wide panel, which was like the John Paul Jones version. I have the head where the amp is actually in the bottom and then the preamp sits on top, well, with all of them. But these are the cleanest ones I have ever seen, and so I got these maybe 15, 18 years ago. But it used to be that acoustics and Sons were just the most common amps.
Right,
anymore, it's almost impossible to find them anymore.
Yeah.
And we've used these and mixed them in. I had Carlos Cavazos who's from Quiet Riot, and we did an amp thing a few years ago, and he was even shocked in taking, Marshalls and Voxes and Sons, and we split them up and had about 12 amps going at the same time, and he was like, this is the most fantastic tone I ever got. But these are the ones you saw just piles of at Woodstock, and of course if you ever saw Mountain,
The loudest band
Yeah.
I've ever heard in my entire life.
Yeah.
Felix Pappalardi
Yeah.
was using that line, that wall
Yes.
of Coliseum amps.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Did you see him at the Felt Forum on like New Year's Eve '74? That was the last time I ever saw him when Felix
I
was
think I
alive.
may have seen him at the Capitol Theater in Passaic.
Yeah, oh, gosh.
Oh my god.
I got stuck out in a rainstorm there.
Oh my
Wouldn't
god.
let me into a show that I had a pass for. And they towed our car away. We had to walk an hour over there in Passaic to some salvage yard at 3 o'clock in the morning with a German Shepherd and drive back. And that was with a guy named Chaz West, who ended up being the singer for Bonham. I was never so mad at a guy in my life because he couldn't drive for crap. Got there late, stuck in the freezing rain in God knows where, New Jersey, and have to retrieve your car.